Find out more by clicking their icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Hi, this is Will Perkins with Taylorville Community Credit Union. Find out about all the products and services we provide by clicking our icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome into the WTIM information station. My name is Tim Zalabak. Time now for the WTIM morning show. Thank you so much to our live stream sponsors, People's Bank and Trust and Landmark of Taylorville. We're streaming live on YouTube and Facebook TV because I got Kent Redfield in the studio with me, not in the studio, on the line with me today. He's a retired professor of political science at the University of Illinois, Springfield. How are you today, Mr. Redfield?
Just fine.
Super good to have you in the station with us today, or on the line with us, because we're talking politics today. I want to get a little bit more informed here, and let's get the day started here. A little bit about talking about Speaker Madigan. He's the former chief of staff, and as the speaker, he was convicted recently of federal perjury. Now, these are some big claims. They carry some lengthy prison sentences. Can you give us a little bit of summary on this, and then tell us what's going on?
Well, I mean, this puts the whole Madigan corruption scandal back in the news. The chief of staff was convicted of perjury because he really didn't. They offered him immunity to testify if he had information involving the charges of a bribery scheme involving Commonwealth Edison and another Illinois public utility to try to get favorable consideration for legislation. And so in spite of being offered an immunity deal, Tim Mapes was the former chief of staff. He basically said, when he testified, he said he didn't really remember anything about what they were asking him about. And they charged him with perjury, and a jury returned a guilty verdict, really in a very short period of time in a trial up in Chicago, like 5 hours or so of all the jury deliberated. And so while this wasn't, directly about any of the corruption involving contracts and things that were done for or alleged to have been done to help the speaker in exchange for him favoring their legislation, it does bring the whole Illinois political corruption back into the headlines again. And there certainly are calls out there for additional legislative action. The Republicans are leaders in the House and the Senate are calling for there to be a special session in the fall when legislature gets back to deal with veto issues and some budget issues. So it just, it opens up that whole issue again about why we have the Speaker of the House and one of and a prominent lobbyist, are being they're going to be tried in the spring. And so, this obviously isn't the first time we've talked about corruption in Illinois politics, but it's pretty dramatic to have a former Speaker of the House and someone as powerful as Mike Madigan, facing multiple corruption charges in a racketeering case, a RICO indictment.
It's insane things to hear. It feels wild. And we've talked about a long time history with corruption in Illinois. And it seems like things had kind of subsided maybe for a year. Am I wrong to say that in terms of speaking corruption?
You never know what's going on under the surface. I mean, obviously we had George Ryan former Governor Ryan didn't run for office a second time and eventually was convicted. Then we had the person elected after him, Rod Blagojevich, was impeached and eventually convicted of public corruption. And these are all, essentially federal cases. We've been, things were, relatively quiet, but we had a whole string of indictments involving corruption in lobbying at the local level with red light cameras, and those things involved a number of legislators that were working at lobbyists, and that kind of led to those investigations. Kind of led to the U.S. Attorney in Northern Illinois opening a very broad inquiry into public corruption, and with using a federal RICO, federal racketeering statute, which allows you to do a pretty extensive investigation and a lot of leeway in doing investigation. I mean, actually, the charges that were the indictments that were just brought in Georgia involving former President Trump and 19 other defendants are a state prosecution under a state RICO case. It's a state RICO case, and this is a federal RICO case, but there's a lot of similarity in terms of the way these kinds of investigations are conducted.
Yeah, sure. I wanted to hit back on one thing before we move on a little bit. You mentioned legislatures acting or performing as lobbyists. Now, in my mind, these are two very different professions right here. And now this is something that should not be ever employed, right?
Yeah, I mean, the laws have been changed to limit or in lots of cases prohibit lobbying. I mean, so you had a state legislator who was, drawing a salary representing a district, and then they would be hired. These people were hired by a company trying to sell red light cameras, these systems that automatically catch you for speeding or running a red light, and so they were essentially a side gig, if you will, and you had. So there are questions about just that in general, and then it turned out that there were in fact bribery and extortion taking place in terms of these activities. So we passed a couple of ethics bills since this whole recent wave of corruption started, but clearly, at least in terms of the press releases we've had in the last week from the Republican leaders in the legislature, in the House and the Senate, there's a call that we need to stiffen those laws and then look at conflict of interest and a number of other things in terms of tightening up ethics. So, yeah, it just seems like it's never ending in terms of Illinois corruption. When you have try to take one aspect of it, then it seems like we've opened up another front, and so this is going to be in the headlines obviously until at least next summer with the big trial coming up.
Absolutely. It's really interesting things coming out, and we'll be here to talk and report on it. Talking about Speaker Madigan right now being convicted of a federal perjury, and Dr. Kent Redfield right now filling us all in on this. Really good stuff to know. This is really good. We're running close to the end of our first segment here, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the Illinois budget before we go on break here, Dr. Kent, as we talk about public pension obligations. Explain to us a little bit what this means for the Illinois budget.
Well, we have a huge pension debt, and there are lots of practices that in pension holidays and underfunding that have taken place over time. So we've got $140 billion of unfunded liability in our pensions. We have a plan to pay that off and reduce that, but that takes a big part of the state budget just to pay off pension debt. And so that's money that is not spent on schools and roads and mental health because we didn't adequately fund the bills, the pension obligations. We put money in supposedly to earn interest, and we just weren't putting the money in, and so that's a continuing problem. And there are going to be attempts in the fall to try and get better funding for that. There's a constitutional problem with you. There's a clause in the Constitution that says you can't impair the benefits of current or former employees, and so we've tried a couple of times with things that have been thrown out by the state Supreme Court. So it's a real dilemma in terms of how do you make up for these past mistakes, given the problems with trying to do direct fixes.
All right. Okay. We're learning a little bit about Illinois budget here, as really some spending maybe in the wrong places here as it can go to, like you said, education, mental health, different types of areas like that. But talking budget right there with Dr. Kent Redfield. He's a retired professor of political science at the University of Illinois, Springfield. Learn a little bit about politics today. Talked about Speaker Madigan, former Speaker Madigan here first. And we're going to take our first short little break here on the WTIM Morning Show. You are listening to the WTIM Information Station.
Your information station, WTIM.
At Kirby Real Estate, we provide the kind of service you deserve in the sale or purchase of your next home. Hi, this is Joe Kirby with Kirby Real Estate. Our professional staff will be involved throughout every phase of the real estate transaction and beyond. We believe in being personally involved with each and every one of our clients so we can find that perfect home for you and your family. So before you buy a home, call Kirby Real Estate at 824-4996. Let our team work for you. Kirby Real Estate, selling houses, creating homes, 824-4996.
This is Will Perkins with Taylorville Community Credit Union. Are you looking for a great CD rate? If you are, TCCU has just what you are looking for. We are currently offering a 7-month share certificate special with an annual percentage yield of 4.35% and a minimum deposit of $1,000. This great rate is for a limited time. For more information, please contact us at any of our convenient locations or online at tccu.org. Dividends will be compounded monthly. A penalty for early withdrawal may be imposed. Fees could reduce earnings on the account. Member NCUA.
This is Dwayne Wheeler, the police chief of the city of Taylorville. As a law enforcement officer, I've seen the impact that depression and suicide have on many people. Many times, those contemplating suicide endure considerable suffering and distress, but there is help. If you feel depressed or lonely, there are many resources to help you. You can call a trusted relative, friend, or minister, or call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. That is 1-800-273-TALK. All of us are here to help you. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Brandon Bible here, your local country financial representative at 1305 West Bresser in Taylorville. Myself, along with my wife Samantha and our assistant Nicole Patrick, are proud to recognize the Tornado student athletes that represent our community by being the exclusive sponsor of WTIM Brandon Bible Country Financial Player of the Game during Tornado sports broadcast this school year. WTIM announcers will select a player at the end of each game who will receive a certificate for being named our Player of the Game. Good luck to all teams this season and go Tornadoes.
The Shelby County Economic Development Corporation aims to foster, promote, and stimulate economic development, from keeping existing industry and retail businesses successful and thriving to attracting new investment in Shelby County. The Shelby County Economic Development Corporation is here to help your business grow. It also sponsors job fairs to fill positions at existing employers and encourages future entrepreneurs in the Shelby County CEO program. Find out more on the Shelby County Economic Development Corporation by clicking their icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Hi, this is Carrie Ostwick, financial advisor with Edward Jones, located at 601 North Webster Street in Taylorville. To find out all the services we provide, click our icon on the obituaries page of TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
I'm Kim Bourne, CEO of Taylorville Memorial Hospital, and we're hiring experienced nurses to join our great team. Learn more by clicking on our icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome back to the WTIM Information Station. My name is Tim Zalabak. This is the WTIM Morning Show. Thank you so much to our live stream sponsors, People's Bank and Trust, and Landmark of Taylorville. I'm sitting down with Dr. Kent Redfield right now. He's a retired professor of political science at the University of Illinois, Springfield. We've talked a little bit about a former chief of staff to Speaker Madigan. He was they were recently convicted of perjury on a federal level there. So very serious crimes we were talking about, and some budget problems in the state of Illinois. Now we're going to move on to the Republican Democratic presidential primaries and how Illinois will play its part in it. Dr. Ken, what do you got to say about this?
Well, we have an early primary, a March primary, and so in one sense, that activity takes place early in the year. Most states don't do primaries until summer or fall. People are going to run for the legislature, going to start circulating petitions in a couple of months. But what normally happens is states run presidential primaries early in the year. We have New Hampshire and Iowa, kind of competing who's going to be the first. And so most of the time, this all gets decided before you get to Illinois' presidential primary. So it usually isn't a big deal. Like that we normally it's people they pretty well locked into who's going to be the nominee. So we don't really see the heavy primary activity that a lot of other states do. And when we get to the fall, because Illinois is a blue state, it's very hard for any Republican to win a statewide election. The assumption is that Illinois is going to vote for the Democratic nominee. And so it's not that you don't see the presidential campaign because you see national ads, but they're really not spending a lot of effort in terms of organizing, get out the vote in Illinois. What you do see is and this will go on, it's going on now and will continue, all the way through the 2024 election, is people come to Illinois to raise money because Illinois is it's a big state with a lot of wealthy donors, and you can get a lot of national publicity in terms of coming and holding fundraisers. And so Illinois tends to be we don't get presidential candidates spending a lot of money in Illinois, but we get an awful lot of the candidates coming and trying to raise money in Illinois. And so that's just kind of the normal rhythm that goes on. We're going to see primary activity for the legislature. There are no statewide elections being held. And so, the local elections tend to be pretty sleepy, but we actually have higher turnout during presidential years, even though there's less Illinois activity because people pay more attention to presidential elections.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about Illinois being a historically blue state. It's very interesting here. It's almost like it's not worth a Republican nominee's time to come here, try to sway any decisions there. It's really just a place of making some money, really a place of raising money. So that's very interesting there with Illinois. Dr. Kent, we are very close to the end here. Any last words for the listeners about the 2024 elections in the state of Illinois?
Oh, I think there are going to be local things of local interest, and those are going to be, in some cases, countywide offices. But all of your House members are up for elections. About a third of the state Senate is up for election. So there are important contests in addition to the presidential election. So
sure.
It's always a good thing to get out and vote, to be informed, and then to vote.
Absolutely. Dr. Kent Redfield, thank you so much for being on the air with us today, taking the time out and getting us all a little bit more informed.
Happy to do it. Thank you.
Absolutely. That's Dr. Kent Redfield. He's a retired professor of political science at the University of Illinois, Springfield. We all got a little bit more knowledgeable today on the politics of Illinois. And we thank him for being on the air with us today. My name has been Tim Zalabak. This has been the WTIM Morning Show. Thank you so much to our live stream sponsors, People's Bank and Trust and Landmark of Taylorville. My name is Tim Zalabak. You are listening to the WTIM Information Station.
Your information station, WTIM.
The Big 870 WTIM Assumption Taylorville, 96.1 W241 CF Taylorville, 107.5 W298 CD Shelbyville, 107.9 W300 EH Payne and Nokomis.
News this hour from townhall.com.